Right. So the first question is, so welcome to the session. Of course, if you're looking back at this on the YouTube channel or probably the Google Classroom or possibly WhatsApp, months from now, remember we have about 4 or 5 months. Initially, your first class tends to be the most memorable one, but also there'll be other classes, about 15 classes, and then in the work then will sort of pile up. There'll be a need to look at some other videos and look at this video in particular when you all are preparing for the assessment, right? So my first question is here, what is NEBOSH? Yeah, what is NEBOSH? Anybody? What is NEBOSH? What does the letter stand for?
National Examination Board on Occupational Safety and Health.
Very good, Derek. And remember, so next question, right? Is NEBOSH just one course?
No.
No, right? So remember, NEBOSH is a brand, right? But as the world would have it, it is the #1 brand in safety, right? And it's the most demanded brand. There are some good sides to that story, which is NEBOSH is globally recognized and the cert doesn't expire and all of those good things that go with it. But there's a downside. The downside is that there is an exam at the end of it. Really, there's no sort of coursework that could help you with the final exam. The final exam is the final exam at the end of the day, right? And there's a project that goes with it. Both the exam and the project goes back to England for marking. And once you're successful, you would be given a NEBOSH certificate from the UK directly. What's the pass mark for the exam? Anybody remember?
45%.
Right, 45, very good, right? Of course, we also said that it's not the easiest to get because what they do, they give 1 mark per answer, right? If you want to get 10 marks, you literally have to give 10 different answers. You could put them in short sentences, outline them, 2 to 3 sentences at the most. But as you catch with it, there isn't any big set of marking for 1 point, right? If you write a passage and the passage just has 1 point in it, but the passage is half a page. Given the fact that if that point was correct, you would just get 1 point for that passage, right? So you really don't write in a passage format. It's okay then to number it, to put #1, #2, #3, #4, #5. And to put about 3 to 4 lines is sufficient for a NEBOSH question anyway, right? All right. Those of us with the books, because not everybody collected as yet, right? Those of us with the books, they could open to page 3, and we'll continue with the slides here. Those of us who don't have the book, look at the slide. It is indeed the same thing anyway, right? The books on the slide are the same set of information.
Sir, I can ask something, please. Good afternoon.
This is who?
So this is Christy. Well, the question I did ask on the chat this morning was, if any of my siblings or guardian could collect the book.
Yes. Until about 3
Okay.
today, yeah, all right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, so if you look at your book, we have page 3, and if you don't have the book, look at the slide. It is the same information. So we have what is health, right? Health, the definition here on the slide, the protection, we can say of our bodies and mind, or the bodies and the mind of people from illness resulting from the materials, processes, or procedures used in the workplace, right? So health is, if you think about it, health is the protection of your physical body and your mind. So if you wonder how the mind, right? So the mind here talks about things like stress, fatigue, tiredness, right? This is occupational health, of course. Of course, it may have medical health, but we are more talking about occupational health in this sense anyway, right? So health is the protection of your body and the mind of people from illnesses resulting from materials, processes, or procedures used in the workplace, right? Next one, safety is the protection of people from physical injury. Some say it's the absence of unacceptable risk. Safety is also concerned with the physical and mental well-being of workers or individuals at the workplace. So when you look at these two definitions, what you'll find is that both of them is kind of the same, right? Health is the protection of your body and your mind. Safety is often the same thing, the physical and the mental, right? And for that reason, you find like most companies, they refer to the safety person as the health and safety person, right? Because in a sense, the definition covers the same sort of concept, both your body and your mind, physical and mental, right? It's almost the same thing. Your physical body, your mental state is almost the same thing anyway, right? The other thing here is that safety is a bit subjective. Yes, your safety could be a bit subjective. It is a bit subjective to your acceptance, right? If somebody accepts risk, to them it is seen to be safe, right? If somebody accepts a risk, to you it is seen to be safe. Another person might not accept that same risk, right? If you think about two persons wanting to cross a busy road, one may be good on their feet and the other one may be a bit slower. The one that decides to cross may be the one that's good on their feet if there's an oncoming car, right? The other person may wait, right? So it's the same sort of hazard and it's the same sort of risk, which is crossing the road, but it may have to do with a bit of acceptance, right? So safety in itself is a bit subjective as to what somebody would accept as safe and what somebody would not accept as safe, right? Like I have, well, those of us in Trinidad, we have some Guyanese here, but like we do have trade union leaders. Those of us in Trinidad may know Watson Duke, right? And there are workers who may be in a company and they would say, well, it's safe. Union leaders could get in a company and say it's not safe, right? But how could the same workplace to one person be seen to be safe and to another seen to be unsafe, right? So it is a matter of knowledge sometimes, like what are the hazards around? And it's also a matter of accepting the risk, right? If you accept the risk, to you it is seen to be safe, right? Well, to a certain extent, I mean, there's actually companies' acceptance as well. So you cannot accept an unsafe job if the company say it's unsafe, right? But it is slightly subjective that safety is a matter of your acceptance as well, right? The next thing I have here is what is health, those of us who have, sorry, not health, but welfare in the textbook. Welfare is the provision of facilities to maintain the health and well-being of individuals at the workplace. Welfare includes washing and sanitation arrangements, the provision of drinking water, heating, lighting, sanitation, all of that good stuff that workers ask for goes within welfare, right? Now, the next couple of definitions, you would not see it in chapter 1, but it's actually in chapter 3, right? What you all can do, what we did, we kind of stuck to the syllabus, right? So sometimes you find the book is one thing, but the syllabus is something else, right? We stuck to the syllabus. If you want to see those definitions, we could go into chapter 3, but you can see it on the slide because we are, following from this slide. So what is a near miss? A near miss, they say this is any incident that could have resulted in an accident. Knowledge of near misses is very important as research has shown that approximately for every 10 near miss events at a particular location in the workplace, a minor accident will occur. So a near miss, for those of us who sort of got that there, a near miss is, some people refer to it as an almost accident. In a near miss, all the conditions were present to have an accident, but it didn't have the accident, right? In a near miss, what would have happened is like you would have slipped, but you got a hold on the railings and you managed to save yourself then, right? You didn't fall. If you were reporting that to someone at home, or maybe reporting it back to the company, you would have told them what what would you have said? Would you have said you fell or you almost fell? What y'all think?
Almost fell.
You almost fell, right? So that's why an accident and an incident and a near miss is actually something different, right? So like a near miss is an almost accident. Again, God forbid if you were driving, I mean somebody that you know, of course. And as we say, we say somebody came out from nowhere, right? But they almost made contact with your car. You are a good driver, so you were able to maneuver and get away from that. In reporting that, then, if you were relating the story to someone at home, you would have said, I almost made accident today. So what you had there was a near miss, right? So for those of us who are working in the companies I'm talking about, what you'll know is that the knowledge of near miss is very important, right? The companies, they prefer that you report those near misses because if you report those near misses and those near misses are investigated, it could actually prevent a full-fledged accident. The person that slipped, right, and almost fell, if they were to report that, it would have been investigated as to why did the person slip. Did it have water on the floor? Did it have oil? Or was it that the person's footwear was worn down, right? So the investigation at the near miss stages actually prevent or could prevent a full-fledged accident. So there's a huge emphasis on near miss reporting in the companies, right? If you want to know what I mean by huge, companies actually give rewards, incentives, monies for reporting near misses because at the near miss stage, it is a preventable stage to prevent a full-fledged accident, right? Keep looking at this slide. The next one I have here is a dangerous occurrence. So a dangerous occurrence, they say this is a near miss which could have led to serious injury or loss of life. Dangerous occurrences are always reportable to the enforcing authority. So what is a dangerous occurrence? Let's take a look again. So this is a near miss. So in a dangerous occurrence, nothing happened. See if we can catch that piece. In a dangerous occurrence is a near miss, and in a near miss, nothing happened. In a near miss, you slip, but you didn't fall. In a dangerous occurrence, it's the same thing. You slip, but you didn't fall. However, a dangerous occurrence is like a class of near misses that if it had happened, the outcome, watch the outcome. The outcome would have been what?
Serious
What's the
injury
outcome?
or loss of
Yeah.
life.
Very good,
Serious
right?
injury or loss.
Yeah, very good. So we have special good afternoon there. We have Keishal Jenin from Guyana. Also Sparkle here is also from Guyana. Sparkle Can Lynch. Let me see if I have any no, I think the other guys in my process safety course, right? So the rest of us I think are Trinidadians. I don't too sure if we have any folks from Tobago here, right? No, right? I think the rest of us are from Trinidad, right? So two from Guyana in this batch, and the class I just had a couple as well. Everyone is like that now, and of course, remember, I did say it in orientation last week. There is a Saturday I would not be in Trinidad. I'll be in Guyana, the 23rd of June. I'm leaving, but that's a Sunday. But then there's a weekend that falls in the time that I'm there, right? So my Guyanese friends would see me more because we wouldn't have classes on that Saturday. I would be teaching again, but it's yet another batch, right? I'm also affiliated with those of us in Guyana. We know the new Guyana school. I'm affiliated with them. I'm doing an oil and gas training there from the 23rd, sorry, the 24th. To about the 29th, right? So oil and gas is in Guyana. If anyone is interested and you're in Guyana, you could contact the New Guyana School and probably book in for that week anyway. Right. So a dangerous occurrence, I was saying, is a near miss, but it's not a normal near miss. A normal near miss is like you won't always die then. And a normal near miss, if you slip, you may have gotten or may not have gotten anything, right? Slight bruise, there's no mark on your skin, right? So that's a near miss, right? But a dangerous occurrence, if it had happened, you would have lost your life. So the examples of a dangerous occurrence is more drastic than somebody slipping in the office, right? If you want, let me give you about 3, but I'll ask you to write it down. To what a dangerous occurrence is anyway, right? So tell me when you're ready. I hope you have your notebooks and stuff, right? Remember I said last week, I'm not too sure if you remember, but there are past papers in every session. This, however, is not one. This is just an example of a dangerous occurrence, right? When we come to the past paper, I'll let you know, and I'll sort of pause and I'll sort of reflect on it a bit as well, right? So with the like 2 good examples of dangerous occurrences. One could be, and I wanted to write this down. One is the overturning of a vehicle, like a forklift, right? So like the overturning of a forklift or a vehicle, but no one was injured. Remember, it is a dangerous occurrence, which means it is a near miss. In reality, nothing happened. But if it had happened any other way, right? Remember, if you could read here and see, which could have, but it didn't, which is why a dangerous occurrence is a near miss as well. But there's a special class of near misses that if it had happened any other way, the person could have died. So the overturning of a vehicle or forklift, right? Another one could be because it had to be a drastic example. It could have been like the collapse of a crane. The collapse of a crane or something at height, but no one was there. The crane operator was not in the crane. Could have been strong winds, could have been a mechanical defect, the collapse of a crane, but no one was there, which is why it is a near miss. But it's a kind of near miss if somebody was there and the crane collapsed, well, they would have been dead, right? So a dangerous occurrence is a special class of near misses. This is a near miss, which could have led to serious injury or loss of life, right? Think you get it a bit? There are no past papers here though, right? So we can move on, right? I'll tell you this story 100 different times today, but I did say to you all, I'll said it just now there again, that I'll say it one time today because I said it last week, right? Like your teacher back in school then, right? Whichever school you went to, if you were doing CXC or whatever you all did, if you did something as in tertiary, right? Your teachers would have told you like what they like to bring for exam, like what were the trending things then, right? These 3 definitions are not trending. They have never been. These 3 definitions we did, well, 4 we did. Health. By the way, you all know it's an open book exam, right? So you don't have to cram anything. Health, safety, welfare, accident. We come back and read that one. Near miss, dangerous occurrence. These are not trending. There are no past papers on that. How much is no? 0. There's no past papers on these, right? Let's go back and read accident. I didn't realize that we left out accident, right? So what is an accident? An accident is any unplanned event that does result in injury or ill health of people or damage or loss to property, plant, materials, or the environment, or a loss of a business opportunity. So an accident is when you do have harm. An unplanned event that results in injury or ill health of people or damage or loss of property, plant, material, or the environment, or a loss of a business opportunity. There's no need to cram. The exam is an open book exam. You are free to use the slides. You are free to use the textbook on the day of the exam. However, the questions don't come like this. Remember I said last week we have to cover some content, then we can look at a question. So today we're trying to do that, right? But don't feel, so I'm trying to tell you, not everything you read will come. I don't know if you remember this, and anybody remember how much questions you all getting? Like, what is the average number of questions you're getting? We can make a guess if you want. Like, is it
8 to
20
10.
questions? Yeah, it's about 8 to 10 questions, right? So they don't test everything. And like a CXC paper, the exam is kind of predictable. It's like it has certain things like they like to bring that, right? Now it's not 100% predictable because CXC for maths or English can do whatever they want, and NEBOSH can do whatever they want too. But there are certain things that are predictable, right? There are certain things you won't get everything, but we could predict certain topic lines then, right? And the definitions are not the topic line. The definitions is the first day. So today we're making sure you understand what is health, what is safety, what is an accident, what is an incident, what is a dangerous occurrence. These are just the first day classes, right? But by 2 o'clock or just about 1:45, in fact, just about now too, we're gonna get into some deeper stuff that are examinable. And I'll tell you when we reach it, right? All right, so let's go on again. What is a hazard? You could keep looking at the slides. A hazard is the potential of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm. A hazard is the potential of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm. So again, I mean, it's not as if you have to learn that, but we have to understand it, right? If you look at this, what they are saying, right? If you think about this a bit, right? Then in a way, anything around you can be a hazard because anything around you could cause you harm, right? The chair that you're sitting on, a water bottle on your desk. If you think about another worker, right? Someone that's working on a height, the person has not fallen, but they could have the potential that they could fall. So at the hazard stage, if you understand this, at the hazard stage, there is no harm. If there is harm, let me try to go back with this slide. If there is harm, right? If there is harm, the slide stuck. If there is harm, then there'll be an accident. Because if there is harm, an accident would have caused that. But at the hazard stage, there is no harm. There is a potential for the harm, but there is no harm as yet. A hazard is like you are going to plug in your computer, whatever, your phone charger into an electrical socket. You plug it on, and you have always plug it on and plug it off, back off. There is no harm, but there's always the what? There's always the potential to get what? In an electrical socket, there's always the potential to get
Electric shock.
Yeah, electric shock, right? But so at that stage, if you understand, at that stage, that's the hazard. If somebody gets shocked, it's no longer classed as a hazard, it's classed as an accident or an injury, or God forbid, a death. But you wouldn't say it's a hazard anymore because the hazard is the potential of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm, right? So the hazard stage is the potential stage. So like if there is a cord, well, not a cord, I mean, not an electrical cord, but let's say a wire, a cord that is draping across the doorway, right? What you can say the hazard is somebody could get, or somebody could slip and trip, right? Somebody working on a height, you can say the person can fall. Somebody mixing chemicals, you say the person could probably get, chemical in their eye. At that stage, then it's all about the potential to cause the harm, but the harm has not happened as yet, right? I wanted to get this because I come into something here that may be relevant to your project. If you have your books, your notes, you could write a little bit as I go along, because even though the project is far away, but we could mention it now. So your final project is based on about 10 hazards, 10 different hazards. You should probably write that down. 10, a lot of people don't get that part of it. 10 different hazards. So you may say, well, where am I going to get 10 hazards from? 10 is a lot. But if you just understand what a hazard was, then 10 is not a lot, because it means that anything around you could be a hazard, right? You don't have to really And by the way, folks, this is why you don't have to go anywhere. You can just sit home and do your project. The project is not really done on a company. You can just make it up. You could just make up a company name. Now, you could use a real company. It's up to you. But using a real company or not a real company is not important. What is important is that they come up with 10 hazards, right? So in your mind, you could be saying, well, what is a hazard? Well, it's what could cause your company harm. Fire. Is fire a hazard? Has your company ever suffered from a fire? No, but that's good because that's why fire is the potential to cause the harm. Folks, you understand it? Right? You see two workers moving something heavy. Nothing didn't happen to them, but could something happen to them? Can they get, like a back pain, a back strain? If the answer is yes, well, then you say manual handling is the hazard. Folks, you think you're getting it? Yeah? Let me give you another one. You see a vehicle speeding, right? So nobody has gotten hit. Somebody leave the company fast 4 o'clock in the evening, they sped off, right? They engaged the gas and they left, they break the speed limit, but they didn't hit anybody. But what's the hazard? Could they have struck somebody? The answer is yes. So speeding, vehicle movement is the hazard. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you, I wonder if you're getting it, you don't have to wait for a what? You don't have to, anybody else?
You don't have to
don't
wait for something to occur, like an incident to occur.
You gotta wait for accident.
Yeah, very good, Kershal and Keegan. You don't have to wait because if you wait for an accident, what I'm trying to tell you, that's not a hazard anymore because the potential would have been realized, right? If you get shocked, then then you say you can't say the hazard is because you'd have been shocked. You say I have been shocked, right? Hopefully you're still here to say something like that. But at the hazard stage is all about the potential. So there's no need to question yourself and say, could fire be a hazard? Yes. Could noise be a hazard? Yes. Could chemical be a hazard? Yes. Once it could cause you harm, it is a hazard. Think you understand that? So what you should have write down on your paper is a hazard could be anything around you, including people. Look at here. Do you know anybody that could be classed as a hazard? Every company have one. Every company have somebody, or every class you remember being in your school. Well, schools in Trinidad are very violent anyway. Schools in America are very violent too, but every class have somebody that was a bit of a hazard, and every company have somebody like that. You know that? Every company have somebody that is a hazard, right? There's always one person that is a bit, clumsy there, right? So a hazard could be a person. Could a worker be a hazard? Yes, if you're not following proper procedure, if you're horse playing, right? You're speeding the forklift, you're doing a 360-degree with the forklift, then you are a hazard. Now, you could probably do the 360 very good, and you could probably speed very good, and nothing has happened, but something could happen, right? So in a way, you are a hazard, right? All right. So what if you got that tidbit? That tidbit there was that this bit of knowledge here. Now, I will teach you the project, as long as if we're not going to teach you the project, but this piece of information here could be forecasted for future months then, like 3 months down the road, where when I come back to the project, if you all remember your notes, and you made a note, you remember when the day we start the project, I'll tell you, the project is on 10 hazards. It can't be anything else, right? I'll tell you 10 different hazards. And I'll tell you, like you could choose 10 different hazards. So that wouldn't change. And this knowledge could be transferable for about 2 to 3 months from now. All right, let's go to the next thing on this slide. So what is a risk, right? So you probably would have heard workers say this, the hazard is fire. But then some of them say the risk is fire. Somebody said the hazard is manual handling. And somebody said the risk is manual handling. Somebody said the hazard is chemical. And then somebody said the risk is chemical. So which is it? Which is it, right? Let me explain. Let me read first and then I'll explain, right? I'll read it first, right? So risk is the product of the likelihood and the consequences of a substance, activity, or process to cause harm. Risk is the product, right? Watch what it did here. Risk is the product. Product, if you remember from mathematics, means to multiply. Risk is the product of the likelihood and the consequences of a substance, activity, or process to cause harm. Watch this, eh? Keep looking at this slide. I want to show you something. Just trying to grab the marker. Watch this up here, right? A hazard is the potential of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm. Risk is the product of the likelihood and consequences of a substance, activity, can probably put in person too, or person or process to cause harm. So this piece of the definition is similar to this piece of this definition. This part of the definition of a substance, right? Activity or process to cause harm, activity or process to cause harm. Persons could be part of it too, right? So it's kind of similar. Hazards and risk is kind of similar, but it's different. Let me show you how, right? So one of them, right, is a calculation of the other one. See if you see that, risk is actually a calculation. What's your formula here? Risk is the likelihood and the consequences of the hazard. This same thing here, right? Like what you say going to happen, risk is the chance that that actually happens. That's how they are different. I'll say it again. If there is an electric, let me just put somebody in a scaffold here, right? If we say somebody is on a scaffold here, right? A makeshift scaffold. I'm not drawing a proper scaffold, right? So this is, I didn't put any guardrails or nothing like that for those of us who know what those things are, right? So somebody is on the scaffold here. You can check Kevin? Just now, I think I lost my marker, right? So risk is, a person is on a height here. Let's say this person is holding a sheet of roofing material, galvanized in his hand, right? And we can say it's a windy day. There's some clouds up here for you all, right? So we can say, what's the hazard? The hazard, but what's the hazard? What could happen to this person? I'll just use the letter H. What could happen to them? The hazard is the potential to cause harm. So what could happen to that person up there? The hazard is the potential of harm. So what could happen to the person working on a height? Let's say that's 10 feet high. He's holding a roofing sheet in his hand, leaning over. Right, he could fall, right? So the hazard is fall. What I'm trying to tell you is this, right? If the hazard is fall, well, then what's the risk? And I just tell you that risk is the calculation. What they do for risk, right? They actually calculate something. That's what you're seeing here. Likelihood and consequences. So what risk is like a calculation. It's like a number then of how likely and how bad the consequences will be if that person fall, right? It's exactly not the same thing. In short, hazard descriptively is a word like fall from heights. Could you write that down? If you're taking this example down, this is actually fall from heights. That's the proper thing to say. Fall from heights, right? So fall from heights. But if the hazard is fall from heights, well, then what is the risk? Well, the risk is the number is like a rating scale associated with that fall. So the risk is not fall from height. The risk is how likely he would fall, he or she would fall, and how bad the consequences would be. You can think of it like this, right? Think of it like this. Today is Saturday, whole day. Tomorrow is Sunday. Sunday normally comes after Saturday. Tomorrow is like a market day for some people. Some markets is on a Saturday, right? You might wonder why I'm talking about markets, right? But when you go to the market, we have all picked up fruits and vegetables and stuff, right? If you go into the market or wherever you get your fruits and vegetables from, right? When you pick it up, that's what you're taking up, right? So if you're taking up, like 3 pounds of grapes, right? But what you take up is like grapes then, or whatever you take up, right? So potatoes and onions or whatever, right? But when you take it up, what do you do with it? Do you just put it in a bag and say, well, this is onions and this is apples and this is grapes and this is potatoes? What do they do with it before you pay for it? What do you have to do with it?
You have to wait.
Right. And when they wait, what they tell you? How much what?
How much it cost is
What you
wait.
have? Right. And what
How
they
much
tell you
it
is like
is
2
wait.
pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds. So it's 4 pounds of grapes, but there's actually plenty grapes. So just making that up, right? So it's like 4 pounds of something. And that is what risk is. Risk is like a number associated with the fall, right? Anybody know the number system that we use? Anybody here in safety? Let me just see if anybody know it.
1 to 5.
Very good. It's 1 to 5, Nicholas, right? And watch me carefully here. It's 1 to 5 on each side. I should have write this to the top here, but can you all see down here? I think you could, right? The number system they use is 1 to 5. Like you want to judge how likely somebody would fall. We could take the same man, likelihood by consequences, and on a scale of 1 to 5, you say how likely he would fall. 1 meaning he would not fall. 2 means like fairly likely. 3 means more likely. 4 means likely. 5 means definitely he would fall, right? And the same thing they do for the consequence, right? The consequence would be in 1 will mean nothing at all. By some miracle, he would fall 10 feet high. I said this is about 10 feet high, and he will suddenly fly off. So that's 1. 2 means, like minor injury. 3 means serious injury. 4 means major injury. 5 would probably mean death, right? So in the grand scale of things, what they do, they choose those numbers, like how likely the hazard would be realized. At the end of the day, though, they multiply them. So you get like 4 by 5, 20. So that's like saying 4 pounds of onions, right? So it's different. One is a scale and one is the actual thing. So the risk is the scale, but the actual hazard is like a descriptive word then, like manual handling, chemical burns. But the risk is like a rating scale on 1 to 5, right? So could we practice this one? So what you think would happen here on a scale of 1 to 5? How likely this person could fall? 1 meaning he would not fall. 4 meaning, probable. 5 means definitely. Numbers like that or descriptions like that. What do you think it would be? You could probably put it in the chat and you could unmute the mic and let me know too. So we don't spend forever on this because I have other things to do.
4.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
about
good.
4.
Okay, 4, very good. Any?
3 to 4, definitely.
Excellent, excellent. Good
4 by
choice.
4
Good
by
choice.
4.
4 by 4, okay. Ola said 5. 5 means he will definitely fall. Anybody agree? I would have, you see the thing about Trinidad and Guyana is that people do this work every day. People work on height every day and they don't fall. People do this every day. Tell me if I'm lying. People do this. When I was in Guyana, I saw this every day. People do this every day, right? People do this every day, right? Including in my office here today. I have a worker working on height here today. People do this every day, literally, right? and we were working on putting up stuff on a height here, and people don't fall. So to choose 5, I think I'll go with a number less than 5, right? Because 5 means you'll definitely fall. And people do this every day in Guyana. People work at a height, people work in Trinidad like this every day. And yes, it's unsafe, but they don't fall. So to say 5, I would kind of want to go to a lower number. However, I would go with 4. Tell me if you agree. 3 to 4 is fine, right? There is no right or wrong answer for this anyway. But yeah, if it was during bad weather, I mean, Nadine, that's a good point. That's a good point. Nadine is saying if it's during bad weather, I think the number could be higher. I think it could be 5 and up. But
The this person have a harness?
No, nothing. But I mean, my clouds look like normal clouds, right? So let's assume it's not bad weather. Let's assume it's just like a normal average day. So it's not excessively high winds. If it was Nadine, I may have to agree with Ola. But in my scenario here, and remember your exam is based on a scenario. So NEBOSH will tell you if it's bad weather, it's bad weather. In my case, I'll tell you it's not bad weather. So I'll go with 4. What do you think could be the consequences? Remember, this fall is 10 feet high, which is high. Right? 10 feet high is put your 2 doors on top of itself, or, you know, 3/4 way up a light pole. How bad do you think it will be on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 means no injuries, 2 means like first aid, 3 major, 4 could be serious, 5 could be death.
So it could range from serious to death.
Right, so you want to go with 4 or 5, yeah? But what number do you say?
So I would really say 5.
Okay. The rest of us, just give me 1 minute. I have somebody at the Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So somebody else, anybody else? I've seen some things in the chat.
4.
4,
So you
5.
could just repeat the numbers.
The truth is, this scale is actually in your book. You want to look at it? Like, do you have a book? I mean, the
No, I
person
didn't
that
get my
asked?
book.
Okay.
I didn't get my book.
Well, like 4 would be like major injury. A major injury is which you're hospitalized for more than 7 days. But 5 is death. So we kind of border in that 4 or 5, right? The good
But-
news here, what a lot of 4s, So I'll go with the 4s. Aidan, Kimberly,
But the
Aaron,
height
thanks
of
for
the
taking part.
scaffold, you said was 10 feet.
Yeah, 10 feet.
Yeah, 4.
Just now, just give me a minute. I would have gone with 5, but if you all say 4, I'll go with 4.
20% falling head first.
Just now, I'm trying to give some instructions here to the work at height. Yeah. I don't see that falling in them. But what's the risk of it falling? Speaking of risk. Yeah, sorry, the last person had said, I still don't see that falling. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, the last person said,
So every person should fall, but they fall in head first. Possibility of a fractured skull.
I think 10 feet is very high to fall from.
Yeah. More possibility of death from falling.
Yeah. So I would probably go with 5. But you see, you all put 4. Now, if you wonder why I said what I said before, I said if you all said 4, I would say 4. Anybody know why I said that? Because I just feel to say that. For those of us who know, right, what you're doing here is something called a risk assessment. And in a risk assessment, remember we said safety is a bit subjective, but you always go with what everybody says. Then if you have 5 safeties and the 5 of them say 4, I will go with 4. That's how you do a risk assessment. A risk assessment is based on the majority. But the point was raised, if the person falls forward, on their head, 10 feet high is spine injuries and brain injuries and stuff. And I actually do know somebody in a company doing consulting for that fell right in in fact I wouldn't call the company name, but right in San Fernando here. And the person is seriously injured, like a vegetable, right? Tucker, that's all I would say. Tucker. Tucker is the name of the company. Well, you almost know Tucker, right? So I'll go with 5 by 4, 20. So this is your final figure we end up with, right? Like how we said 4 pounds of, onions, this is the final figure. So see if you understand. So the hazard is fall from heights, but the risk associated with it is 20. Now here the thing, right? When you go to buy the onions at the market and they tell you, well, I don't know what the price of onions, I just make it. So they say like $4 a pound, right? How do you know it's high? How do you know that day the market is high? And how do you know the market sell good that day? Right? So it's the same kind of question here, right? How do we know if 20 is high? Is 20 good? I mean, 20 sounds like it's high, but how do we know? How do we know if 20 is high or 20 is low? Like, what's the scale? Is it out of 100? How do we know if 20 is high or 20 is low? Anybody could say, what is the highest number this is out of? It's 20,
25.
but it's 20 out of what?
25.
Very good, 20 out of 25. You also, where we got the 25 from? Where are we getting the 25 from? Why not 100? Where did the 25 magically appear from? Anybody?
Because the likelihood the most is 5 and the consequences the most is 5. So 5 by 5 is 25.
Excellent, right? Well, I have a good teacher in class. Like, by the way, all my students sometimes migrate to become teachers of mine. For years now, for more than a decade now. All Kevin laughing here. This is a guy in the office. He's one of my students too, right? But all my students migrate in some way, either to work in safety or lecture in safety, right? So that's very good. The way you said it is excellent, right? So the highest this side will be is 5, and the highest this side will be is 5. So the highest the risk formula could ever be, not my formula. This is in your textbook, chapter 3, right? In the world of risk assessment, then the scale is out of 25, right? So where does the 20 fall? If you were to draw it like on a number line, yes, that thing from primary school. If you draw it on a number line, of course, it would be a straight line. And 1 was here, and 25 was here. Well, 20, which is what we got, right? 20 is somewhere close to 25, right? So we are somewhere here. So we should be able to deduce from that the number line, the lower part of the number line would be low risk. I just put in the letter L. The middle of the number line would be medium risk. And the top of the number line would be high risk. So if we got something like 20 or 25, that should signify to safety, which would be you and I, that this is high risk. And if it's high risk, guess what you have to do as a safety? What do you think you have to do? If you came to work that morning and you saw a worker, you saw Frank on top here, Frank didn't realize he came to work early that day, right? He didn't set up the scaffold properly, he didn't put in the guardrails. Some other worker had him a sheet of roofing materials and loading it on a higher place in the company or something, right? What would you do if you saw that? In your mind, you just do the assessment, and common sense will tell you to what do you think you have to do as a safety?
Bring it down to the lowest number possible.
Yes, but it's the first thing you do with Frank. It starts
So
with
you
the
have to
letter
make
S.
sure that he has a safety in place and you have to
Right.
record it.
Right, but what you have to do with him in that day, in that moment in time, what you have to tell him? Stop work. Right? Please remember that, right? Remember, here the thing, right? Remember, I don't know if I told you a lot of stuff last week. People's lives are in your hands, huh? Paria. Paria. Well, you wouldn't know this, but I'll tell you this. Do you know that the safety is interviewed? Do you know that if you looked at the Commission of Inquiry on TikTok or Facebook, whatever you saw it as, do you know those are my students? Every one of them? Well, from supervisor come down the line, from the supervisor coming down the line, right? That was interviewed were like students of the school. I can't call no name because I don't want to call anybody name, right? I'll call the name next time when Kevin not here. The students I have in the office here, right? So, but what I said, right? Sometimes the onus is on you then to face the heat, right? The onus is on you to stop the job, and they didn't stop the job. They just let it go by. That is what Paria used to always do. Do the dive, When you come out of the dive, then you follow the paperwork. Then you do the risk assessment, then you follow the permit to work, right? But if anybody had done it before, I try not to call the people name, right? If the students, which are grown people, when I say students, remember they pass through here, right? If they had done their job, which is stop and unsafe work, right? There's no rescue team. The line wasn't properly isolated. If they had done that, they would have had a clearer conscience today. And the workers and those divers would have probably been alive today. So people's lives are in your hands. One of the interesting things about safety, I'll tell you another story, right? I'll tell you one other story. The students in the office here know this person too, so I'll try not to call too much her names, right? One of the stories I have to tell is like, I have a student, her name is Praveen. Well, she finished, right? Praveen is working as a safety in a company called Do More Enterprises. Anybody know Do More Enterprises here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah.
Right, Do More, right? Well, they probably know her as Cool Lip is her last name. I know her as Praveen. But when I met Praveen, Praveen was not in safety. And if I told you this story before, she was, well, Teddy Mohammed, she was the girl standing in the lane in Teddy Mohammed's bookstores. No, the Teddy Mall by Gov City Mall, those of us in Trinidad, right? Anyway, I remember she said something. She said she had always liked taking care of people. She had always liked like a job then that have some kind of moral fulfillment at the end of the day. But she didn't know she could have gotten paid for it, right? And then she found safety, right? Praveen did the certificate, Praveen did the diploma, years now, where Praveen working the safety as Do More Enterprises, more than probably 4 or 5 years now, right? So I tell you this story to tell you this, that safety, yes, it have money in it, right? It have a good career in it all over the world. But it's also a job where people's lives are in your hands. And if you do your job, there is some kind of moral fulfillment, knowing that you saved Frank then. But I mean, it don't have to be Frank, it be whoever is in your work, right? Even if the person hates you, even if they, you know, they use expletives or whatever, you save that person that day, right? So yes, you get paid, but there is a moral fulfillment for being in safety, right? Now, the day when you don't do your job, that's another story. And there are those weird occurrences where you still do your job and somebody still may get harmed or still may get hurt or may still die. But at least you know you do your best. And that's probably all that you can do, right? So health and safety is, I think, one of the most commendable fields you have out there. It's not an accounting job. We are not just crunching figures. We're crunching figures today, right? But we're not just crunching figures. At the end of the day, just don't give me a minute, yeah? Take from out. Can I move it? I'll move it just now. Hold on. Just give me 1 minute. Here. Yeah, I tell you, this guy in the office today that's helping me, Kevin, he's one of my students and more than, I don't know how much years now, but he's always stick around. Like I have a little work to do in the office today, so he's helping around. But when he came here, Kevin is the safety manager for Adon. If you all know Adon, the same guy that I showed you here just now, right? Adon. But when he came here, right? I never tell you the story before. He was selling milk. If this is the story I told you last week, this is the guy that was selling the milk, right? And he walked in selling milk, and I asked him what he was doing many years ago, 14 years ago, right? Probably more too. And today, he has worked in many companies. He worked in Tiger Tanks. And at one point, he worked in Munar. But today, he's the safety manager for Adon, right? But I have a little thing to do in the office today. So he's volunteering and he's putting up some security cameras and stuff here for me today. So as I was telling you, a lot of my students, they have that way then. I'm not just telling you things that The I told him NEBOSH could actually change your life, right? Today he has a fine career and he's one of many students. I just told you about Praveen, right? So safety, this course, this is not Costat. This is not Cipriani, right? This week, yesterday, today is Saturday, right? Yesterday, a trainer came in my office. One of my trainers, anyway, he do the high anger rescue. Yes, we do other training courses, right? So we do high anger rescue. He's one of my trainers, and he was telling me he heard another student of mine is in Qatar, and that student is making about 150,000 TT a month, right? So we were talking about that, and you know, talking about a similar student that we had, and where that student is today. So remember, your NEBOSH qualification does not expire, and it's recognized all over the world. If you doubt that, well, that's good if you doubt it. I'm glad you doubt it, right? What I will tell you to do if you doubt it, take up your phone right now and go and Google UK HSE jobs, or go and Google jobs in Qatar or jobs in Canada and see what they're looking for, right? Or jobs in Guyana, and those in Guyana could go and Google jobs in Trinidad and you'll see what they're looking for, right? That's your NEBOSH qualification there, right? So did you think you get the point, folks? Just to get back to the point that safety is a commendable field, but you have to do your job, right? Well, Kevin left, so I could call it, in fact, I shouldn't call the people name, right? And I'm going to call him in Paria, right? But when you do your job, you feel good and you get paid and you get good pay too, right? But when you don't do your job, don't be everybody's friend, right? This is a field where if something is unsafe, yeah, they say it's unsafe. You cannot see Frank like this and hush your mouth, right? You have to stop that work. And this is just one example, right? You do your job. At the end of the day, you mightn't be everybody's friend, but you save some lives now, right? You save some lives, right? And yes, safety have the money in it, but I said there's a moral side to it. In fact, if you look at your book, page 3, that's the first thing you have to go and study. But today we're doing some definitions. We come into moral just now, right? Tell me if you understand what I did here. Let me see, just a recap. So the first thing we did, just a recap, is about 2 o'clock. We looked at some definition. What is health, safety, welfare? We also said those definitions don't come. We went on with some other definition: accidents, incidents, dangerous occurrences. We stopped on these because these have a reflection to your project in that you have to get 10 hazards, and yes, you have to assess it. I don't know if I said that to you all. I probably didn't, but you could see it from here. Once you get the hazard, it's like you go to the market, but you can't leave with the onions. You have to pay for it. How much you're paying, which is the number, £4, £5, right? So you cannot get a hazard and not rank it. Once you get a hazard, the purpose in getting a hazard is to rank it. So likewise, your project, you have to get the hazards and you have to rank them. The good thing with that, though, is that you only have to rank 3 of them. From the 10, you have to just take the first, second, and third, like what you saw to be the first major hazard, what you saw to be the second hazard or second major hazard, and what you saw to be the third. So you only have to rank 3 for your project, right? Let's come to this slide. This is an important slide. What is a hazard? Anything with the potential to cause harm. You don't have to wait for the harm to occur. Once there is a potential, we class it as a hazard. The next thing is, what is risk? Risk is a calculation on the chance of what you say going to happen actually happening, right? So risk is a calculation. You end up at 20 or at 25, it turns out to be high risk. If it's high risk, we have to stop the job. Tell me if you understand up to there, because that's where I reach. And we can take it from here. If you have any questions, please ask. We can take a little breather. I can take a sip of water in the meantime. By the way, I don't know if you all know me. I have 3 to 4 classes on a Saturday. So by the time I get, you all must have seen me when you come in to pay, you'll see me teaching, right? You all are my last today. But normally, I am a bit tired by the time I get to you all. I normally start 8:30, right? Tomorrow is classes as well. Remember, it's a full school we run. We have other tutors, but remember I told you, I have you. I have taken this class. I could have given it to Mr. Ticker, but I have I started off being a tutor before being a business owner. Then it's like before was, you know, Shadrach, I was always a teacher. So I think I have that bad habit. Like I said, Kevin, I taught him more than 15 years ago. Safety as well. But at that time, it wasn't my school. Right. The first time I met Kevin, it was in another school that I was the principal of, another safety school. Right. But I always had that way then. Like to me, this is the fun part of it. I do like teaching. So, you know, I take classes where I could, as much as I could. Right. Any questions, folks? I'm going to get a sip of water and we'll take it from here. If you all are finished, but then we're going into the moral reason to manage health and safety. So what you need to understand, do you understand that there's a difference between hazards and risks? Tell me if you understand there's a difference between hazards and risks. Yes or no? I think that's Kevin water. We are trying not to drink. Yes, okay, good. The next one, do you understand that the risk is like a ranking on the hazard? Yes or no? Yes or no? The class? You're still here?
Yeah.
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 Well, you can say one is a calculation of the other one, right? So like you're going to the market, you're going to buy bananas, but it's how much pounds you have. So it's not the same thing, but one is like how much of the other one then. So 3 pounds of bananas, right? So in the workplace, you as a student, you do not get it mixed up, right? In the workplace, people do mix up hazards and risks. As I was telling you, some people will say the hazard is fire, but then somebody said the risk is fire. No, the risk cannot be fire. The risk got to be 20. The chance of the fire happening is 20 out of 25 or 25 out of 25. But the average man on the street don't know this, you see. But you are a student and you would be a safety, you will be a manager in the years to come. Who knows, a lecturer, right, in the years to come. So you have to say the right thing. I'm trying to find more water, but I didn't find it, right? I found club soda. Okay, anybody else? Any question? Any questions? Let me check on the chat. If you're okay with this, we're going on to something back in the textbook, right? So what I did the first day, as today is your first day, I try to cover as much definition as possible, right? So NECA, we got you there. Kershaw, we got you there. Aidan, we got you there as well, right? By the way, I think, is it Aidan? Is it Aidan that know one of my students as well? I know somebody know another student of mine. Is it Aidan? Who is the one that knows? Is it Aaron?
Yeah.
I can't remember what year Aaron was too. Today, Aaron, what is Aaron? So you tell him, what is Aaron in your company? Who is Aaron in your company?
Aaron is a HSC officer in Proman.
All right, Aaron is a HSC officer in Proman. Of course, when I knew him, he wasn't even working. I remember a story with Aaron. His van had cut. Well, his van couldn't start even after class. Yes, we had face-to-face class. It was late in the evening, Saturday whole day. Saturday whole day used to be NEBOSH, and NEBOSH used to be 3 exams long time. Today is 1 exam. How much was long time? I can't remember, but Aaron could have been 2018, not as old as Kevin. I mean, you notice these people are not really old, but you know when I say, I've been doing this long enough. But today, Aaron is a safety officer in Proman. And is Ramnarayan in your company? Alistair Ramnarayan, do you know who that is?
I don't.
Yes?
No, I don't know Aram.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Well, I know, I think he's the manager, the overall manager. You probably don't know. If not, then I am mixing up my companies. But I think because I met him there. I met him when you all had Proman had a safety week. I met Alistair there. Alistair Ramnarayan, he hosted the meeting. Right? Yeah, Kevin will know him. Yeah, Alistair Ramnarayan. Yeah. Anyway, small world. I don't know if he's in Proman. Ask him, but this person said they probably don't know him, so probably not in Proman. Yeah. All right. Kevin say he think he probably leave, right? All right, let's move on. Okay, so other than me asking questions, do you have any questions? Anybody? If not, we're going on to moral. Those of us in the books, watch your book page 3. Those of us with all the books, follow. It's not very long. It's like 2 passages, but it's very important. So here what? I don't know if you want me to explain first or read first. Because I mean, it's after 2, right? So I know your attention span mightn't always be there. So let's read one slide and I'll explain. And then we'll see if we can tie this into something else, right? So moral reason, all the slide says here, I'm reading from this slide, right? The number of work-related fatalities for the year in the UK. The average number of persons killed is 220, about 4 people each week. The figures say again, the average number of workers seriously injured, 30,000 people seriously injured, or at least 1 in every 17 minutes. They say there's an expectation from society for a safe workplace, and that could drive a safer workplace. I read it again. Moral reason. It makes business sense to prevent an accident as opposed to deal with the consequences of the accident. The average number of days away from work is 33 million days. Think about the associated costs. See statistics on page 5 and page 6, but it doesn't have much in this updated book. Some of the statistics is on page 3. Right, yeah, Kevin saying sorry. Yeah. All right, so let's see what this is all about. Folks, the reading didn't really say what I wanted it to say. And if I look at the book, I'm actually seeing the same thing. I'm seeing some statistics, but that's not what moral is. So that's what I wanted to explain, right? Hopefully you have your pen and your paper. Let me tell you what moral is, right? And I wanted to write it down as I go along. Now, I'll give you many explanations for the same thing, right? I'll give you about 5 explanations for the same thing. Now, the reason for this, you probably figure it out. This is an exam question. But what do I mean by this? Because it's not the figures. The figures don't come. It's an open book test. They're not going to make it that simple for you, right? So you need to understand what does moral mean. So let me go with the first explanation. The first thing is this. Moral means it is the right thing to do. Moral means it is the right thing to do, right? So there is a grander picture here. The grander picture is they say there are 3 reasons to manage health and safety. Listen a bit still, right? There are 3 reasons to manage health and safety. One of them is moral. Could you turn your book so those of us who have the book? If you don't have the book, I'll tell you what's like what is the other 2. If you turn your page, what you're seeing after moral, those of us with the textbook, what you're seeing after moral? What's the word after moral when you turn the page to page 4?
Money.
So not everybody have the book, right? So those of us with the book, I guess you need to shout it.
It's moral and money.
Right. But okay, morals and money. Okay, good. But when you turn to page 4, what's the heading you're seeing on page 4?
The financial reason for managing health and safety.
So there are 3 reasons to manage health and safety. Moral is one of them. Financial is one of them. And another one is legal. You'd have to go to page 7 to see that. So next week, Saturday, we'll be doing financial and legal. Today is moral. Right? But what do they mean by moral? So moral means it's the right thing to do. Right? Listen to this a bit. Moral means then that you should manage health and safety because it's the right thing to do. I want to get in this. Moral, legal, and financial is not the same thing. A moral reason to manage health and safety is not the law. These are all statements you can write down. Huh? A moral reason to manage health and safety is not money. In other words, moral is moral by itself. Money is money by itself. Legal is legal by itself. I hope you understand this, because the minute you mix it, you'll get it wrong, right?
So
So,
could
yeah,
it
go ahead.
be also that the moral reasoning is not just the right thing to do, but it's a sense of duty, a sense of obligation to keep the employees safe.
Yeah, very good, right? So moral reason is like your sense of care. It have nothing to do with the law. It have nothing to do with law. It have to do with like you as a human being there, right? So that's supposed to be care, right? C-A-R-E. The R and the E mixed together there, right? So we could write it better than that. So moral means is like your sense of care to your fellow workers. An employer is an employer, but he's first a human being, right? So the fact that the employer wants to go home safe means that I want to see Kevin go home safe today, right? I want to see the workers go home safe at the end of the day, right? So it is your sense of caring then that is what moral is, right? It's your sense of humanity, right? So remember I told you I would explain moral to you in different words, your sense of humanity or humane, right? So why should you take care of somebody, health and safety? Because it refers to your sense of humanity. And no one saying I want to see you safe. It refers to your sense of caring, your sense of humanity, right? So in other words, only forgetting this, moral doesn't have to do with the law. Moral means you provide drinking water for workers, not because the law said that, not because the OSHA said, because you yourself would want to drink water during the day, right? And providing drinking water is the right thing to do. You provide PPE, a hard hat, gloves, safety glasses, not because the law says so, but because it's the right thing to do. It shows a sense of caring to the workers. So moral refers to that. Moral refers to things like your conscience, like what to be on your conscience. Like if somebody was to get injured, if somebody was to get in a fire or something, right? How would you sleep on the night? Knowing that you were the one who didn't buy the fire extinguishers. You are the employer. The employee is telling you about fire training, but you didn't buy an extinguisher, right? So a fire occurred, part of the business burned down, an employee got burned, an employee probably died. Now, what is on your sense of conscience, of moral? I'm forgetting this. Moral is a higher order of duty. It's higher than the law, right? You do what you do, going back to the first one, because it's the right thing to do. You don't have to wait for OSHA to tell you, right? It's a sense of care and a sense of humanity. You don't want it on your conscience, is what I was going to put here, right? Tell me if you're understanding this. And what we have to do now, we have to pause and relate it to the past paper. Now, the neat thing is though, well, let me put this into context again, right? I'll say it again. There are 3 reasons to manage health and safety: moral, legal, financial. You're listening still? All of them don't come for exam. Remember, it's only about 8 questions you're getting, right? So what they do, sometimes students are lucky. Sometimes they get moral and legal, but sometimes they just get one. Which one? I don't know, but it's my job to tell you. Well, NEBOSH, kind of like this. This is not a sure science. This is not me telling you it will come. It wouldn't come. It probably wouldn't. But history will say that in the past papers, you get one of these. You either get moral or legal or financial, right? It's just a trend. All your secondary school teacher could have done when they were teaching you maths was to say fractions could come. But which kind? They probably have a mixed fraction, but which kind? They can't bring it down to the accurate science then. We know fractions coming, but we don't know which one really. We know trigonometry coming, but we don't know which one, if it's sine, cosine, or tan, right? But we know it coming. So in the past papers, you normally get moral, legal, and financial. Yes, and today is your first day. Today is your first day. So one of the questions in your final paper is going to come from today's class and next week's class, because remember we are finished, it's moral, legal, and financial, but one of the past paper questions come from the very first lesson, or first lessons anyway, right? All right, so what I wanted to do, let me ask a question. If you understand now what I meant by moral, and it have nothing to do with the figures in the textbook, it don't have nothing to do with 140, 65, 20, it have nothing to do with that. It have nothing to do with the figures on the slide. Moral means that you should manage health and safety because it's the right thing to do, right? So what I need to do to you now, I need to relate this to our past paper. So tell me if you understand, for now, what the term moral means in health and safety, and what does it mean that the employer should provide for you, or they have a moral duty of care. Michelle mentioned the word duty. They have a moral duty of care to your fellow man. It's like a duty to humanity, to another living being there. That is what it said to be a moral duty. Do you all understand that? We have 20-something people here, so all of you all cannot not
Yes, I
answer.
Yes, sir,
understand.
understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
understand.
All right. I'm trying to see what is the best thing to do. If to try to, it gets into 2:15 already. I could tell you and show you, but showing is going to take longer. So maybe I could tell you and attempt to show you. See, today is the first day. We don't really have to look at a past paper today, but I do have one in her, but I do have one. I open one for you, but I mean, this is not really telling you how the question will come. You can tell me if you're seeing a past paper in the background. I'm not asking you to do anything. I remember I'm just trying to tell you. Remember, I've said before,
Yes,
I
sir,
am
I've
not
seen the past
NEBOSH. Very good. I am not NEBOSH. You are not NEBOSH. Those of us in Guyana, I am not NEBOSH. NEBOSH is in England. If you listen to the video last week, you'll see that. So at the end of the day, as much as I get to know your name, I cannot help you pass. You have an exam to do at the end. You and God alone, which is actually the same thing, right? You and God alone. But you know, kind of nothing, right? You have an exam to do, so we have to relate it now, right? So I'm trying to see. This is let me try to figure the year for this one. I just opened this at random, and this is October 2020, right? So your paper, if today is your first day, last week we showed a paper, right? Last week we showed a paper too. I think we did, right? So you have a scenario. It's not very long. Depends on what your class is long, right? Long is like 2 pages, right? And CXC was longer than that. The CXC English paper was longer than that. I remember doing CXC English paper, the English, it had a paper 1 and a paper 2. The paper 1 was longer than this. Paper 1 had some long, Kevin Obregat, had some long comprehensions of a man working at a height here. You want help? No? It had a long comprehension, right? Anyway, yeah. So, October 2020, you all wouldn't believe this. I told you I didn't plan to open this paper. Yeah? I just opened this at random. Didn't plan this, huh? Right? So let's see the question. Watch what is the first question. No, that doesn't always happen, huh? So I am lucky. I am lucky right now. That doesn't always happen. Right? That doesn't always happen. I'm lucky that I open my paper with a moral question in it. But let's go through the rest of the question, because I tell you some years they ask moral, legal, and financial, but they don't bring all 3. Some sit-ins you could get moral and legal, moral and financial, right? Look at question on risk assessment here, which is kind of like what we started to do, right? Remember, today is your first day. Today is not your second day. Today is your first day. And already we can start to see that we can do something on the paper. Right, so this had 8 questions. There was not financial, so they didn't test financial. Let me see, they didn't test financial. They tested risk assessment. By the way, we are not finished. We just define risk assessment, right? But risk assessment is chapter 3. However, you know, this point is proven when I said some sit-ins, they test moral, legal, or financial. In this sit-in, they test moral. Let's see what we have to do, right? So task 1. Discussing moral reasons for managing health and safety. We know this is 10 marks. Anybody from last week remember how much we have to do? If that fallen shilling said it.
10.
We have to give 10.
Well,
We have to get 10 answers here. We have to get 10 answers. And listen to what they say. They say, comment on the organization, health and safety morals. Comment on the organization, health and safety morals. You should support your answer where applicable, using relevant information from the scenario. So come back to me now. If you're looking at the question, come back to me a bit. It looks good. Yeah. Right? Come back to me now, right? So the question is this. Well, my question, well, what do you do? What do you do to get that 10 marks? Do we start the right figures from the textbook? Do we go open the book and put on average about 140 workers are killed at work? What we doing to get that 10 marks? Haven't discussed what moral is. Let's kind of recap. Moral meant it was the right thing to do. Duty of care, sense of humanity, on your conscience, right? So what we doing to get that 10 marks? We say comment on the organization, health and safety morals. So because of the time, I'll only take one answer from you all. Because remember, I was going to tell you or show you, but I end up showing you and having to tell you at the same time. So we won't have time to do the both in detail, right? So anybody could tell me, what do you think you have to do to get that 10 marks? So like, what could be a possible answer? What do you have to do then? How we getting the answer for that? Make a guess. Today's the first day, so it's okay to be wrong today. All right. I should not say
again,
wrong,
10
should I say
different
right?
answer.
Yes. But 10 different answers on what? Comment on the organization, health and safety morals. Comment on the so
Well, you
what
have
it
to
is,
read the scenario and look at what they place emphasis on in terms of what is right for the employee.
okay,
Like
good.
the duty
Anybody
of
else?
care,
Yeah.
the sense of humanity is the right thing to do. So you're pulling those answers. Yes, you would have those answers, but you will pull it from the scenario and back it up with what is there.
Okay, very good. Very good. So did you all get that? I'll take Michelle's answer for it because that's exactly what I wanted to say. So see if you understand now. I'm just going to draw a point. See if you understand why this is called tertiary education. You see, secondary school is about recall, draw and label the digestive system. Secondary school is about recall and slight interpretation, right? Find the perimeter of a circle. You recall the formula. Tertiary education is not recall. Tertiary education is thinking. You see what you learned just now? That moral means what is right. What you have to do, you have to go through that passage and find 10 things that is right or wrong. Now, why would it be right or wrong? Because of the verb that they use. So this is one of your first learnings today, right? Remember, today is the first day we have to be doing a question and looking at a question. The verb or the action word comment, you need to understand what this means. So you can take it down today. From now till your very last day, it will be the same thing. Comment. What does comment mean? So comment means to give your opinion. And your opinion, you could see what the organization did as right, or what they did to be right, or you could see it to be wrong. I wonder if you understand. Comment means your views. If you say then, in my view, or in my opinion, the organization, health and safety morals was good with respect to communication. You'll have to go and support it to that line from the passage, but it all depends on how you see it. If the passage said that communication was good, but in the passage said the risk assessment was not reviewed. In other words, then, and if you're getting this, in one of your answers out of the 10, you can say that you agree that the morals was good and that was right. And another answer, it could be that it was not right, because it's all about your views. Comment means to give your views, and your views could change based on how the passage goes. You think you understand this a bit? Let's try to do one. Let's try to do one. We'll pick up on this next week. Today is only your first day. Rome was not built in a day. And I guess you can't eat a dinosaur in one bite. Smaller bites, right? So let me know if you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Comment means to give your views, right? You'll have to go to the passage, and when you read something that sounds right, you'll have to say, well, yeah, this is an answer, right? You'll have to say that, in my view, the organization had good morals with respect to training, and that they did train 2 employees. But in that same case study, what I'm saying, there could be something that wasn't done. If you put in my opinion, with respect to risk assessments, the risk assessments were not updated. So therefore, the moral reason for managing risk then was not fulfilled. That will still be correct, because in your views, you could take in pros and cons. Once you see the verb comment, and if you notice, again, this is why it's an open book exam. You all think you catch what NEBOSH did here? I wonder if you catch the sense. The sense is that it didn't even matter if the book was open, because the book not helping you. I think I told you that sometime last week. The book could help you with certain things, but tertiary is more thinking, and this paper is a more application paper. So there's no numbers for you to crunch. There is no risk formula for you to remember. If you want to remember it, but they're not going to ask it. It's all about thinking. It's all about tertiary education, right? I have 5 minutes again, folks. Could I take this off? I think I have to clear the screen before I scroll up. Zoom does freeze the screen if you write on it. So let me clean that screen. And let's go to find one. Now here what I have to do, right? I have to spot read because it's 26 minutes past 2 now. Now when you get this to do, I'm not going to give it now, right? I'm going to have a full class with you next week again and make sure you understand what you have to do. What I could probably do for you next week, if I remember, let me try to write this down. I'm going to try to remember this passage because I opened this at random. I didn't plan this. So if I 2020. Maybe you all could write it down for me too. Next thing you see, I forget. October 2020. That was number 1, right? So we'll look at it next week too, right? But what I'll probably do, you know what I'll do? I'll try to find somebody who did this exam in October 2020. That was in the height of the pandemic. We had students here. We had students all then online, right? And I'll try to show you their answers there. So you can have an answer. You can have an answer pattern there, right? But for now, I have to guess. When I say guess, I'm not really guess. I have to spot read, right? So I'm trying to spot something they did here that could tell me that the company had a good moral or a bad moral to health and safety, right? Let's see what they did, right? And a spot reading, I don't know if you all could read, but I have to spot read to find one for you. Okay, I'll take the first passage, right? So the organization has a reputation of having a world-class health and safety culture, with many other industries using them as a benchmark. That's a good thing, right? It is a legally compliant organization, so I can't use that because moral is not legal, right? That sets clear objectives and checks that they are met. It employs and retains motivated workers who are aware of their clearly defined, documented responsibilities and want to continuously improve on their roles. I could use this line here. I could use this, right? So listen to how it will go. Next week, I'll show you and I'll probably write it for you, right? For now, just understand it a bit. I would say, in my opinion, did they give the name of this company? No, they didn't give the name, right? I would say the organization has good morals with respect to motivating workers. Remember, morals is all about that sense of duty of care. The fact that they say motivated, that's why I stopped one time, because that was one, right? So listen to it. Every answer is numbered, and every answer is about 3 lines long. So I would say, in my opinion, the company has a good moral with respect to maintaining motivated employees, right? And then you put a first up and you have to quote from the passage. A NEBOSH exam is like a comprehension. I said this last week. Feel free to quote from the passage. You can say this could be seen where in the case study it was mentioned that the organization employs and retains motivated workers who are aware of their clearly defined and documented responsibilities and want to improve in their roles. That's a big thing to say because most companies are not like that. Most companies, people come to work and if they find something else, they go on. Right? But to say a statement that the companies retain motivated workers, most of them retain workers, but they're not motivated. They're motivated to leave. They're motivated to leave you. But the fact that they say they're motivated here and they want to continue, I think that means that the company is doing something right. So morally, remember the sense of right? Come back to that, the sense of rightness. So I think this is something good the company is doing. And that's one of my answers. I'll say it again. Last thing I say today and I stop in the recording, right? In my opinion, next week I'll try to show you some. In my opinion, I believe the company has a good moral to motivating workers. First up, this is seen where it was mentioned and you can quote the direct line. You could use indirect quotation too. Anyone is okay? I can show you both techniques, but I've kind of done the direct quotation today. So you can say this is seen where it employs and maintains motivated workers who are aware of their clearly defined and documented responsibilities and they want to continuously improve on these rules, right? If you do that, it's correct. And if you do it 10 times with another set of answers from the case study, it will be correct. And that's a NEBOSH exam. A big comprehension. That's the way I could describe it, but not too big. But I mean, like a tertiary level comprehension then. And really, there's no such thing because comprehension was always comprehension. Even in secondary school, you had to quote from the passage. That's how you do an exam. You do that 9 other times. Number 2, sorry for this one here. Number 2, space out your answers like this. Number 3, space out your answers. I'll show you. Look, Kevin, who is here, right? So when he did his NEBOSH, this is something he used to always do, right? Always space them out, always number them. The minute you put it in a passage, you don't get the mark for it, right? They checked 10 for 10. Last week, for those who are here, can I finish it now? Last week, those who are here, I said, for those of us in Trinidad, Subway, the fast food chain, had a special long time. Because the special is not on anymore, so don't say I tell you Subway have a special. But they used to call it 20 for 20. And that was $20. I can't remember what it was for 20 for 20. How did it be something 20 of something else? I don't know if it's 20 for 20.
20 for plenty.
20 for plenty. Right, okay. So it's like this then. It's like you have to give them 10 for 10, 20 for 20, right? So once you do that, folks, you'll pass exam. The other reason, if the only reason you're getting that wrong is if you misinterpret this question. Like if you write about something else, that wasn't what they asked for. That's the only way to get it wrong again, right? So that is the end of our first class with a past paper. And guess what? Your last class will be the same way with a past paper. The reason is that, remember, you have an exam to do at the end. That's why you're here. You're here to do NEBOSH. You're not here to do custom.